It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Michael Wilgus. He's the Director of Strategic Relations for the Dentist Supply Company, which is a TDSC subsidiary of the California Dental Association, which, gosh, in my mind is absolutely damn near as big as the American Dental Association. I mean, it's just huge. As Director of Strategic Relations for the Dentist Supply Company, Michael creates and implements strategic strategies designed to grow and improve the TDSC.com business as a benefit to members of organized dentistry. He deploys the TDSC experts and resources needed to empower dentists to gain more control of the cost of instruments and supplies and practice dentistry on their own terms. Michael has spent more than a decade in the dental industry, including owning a dental consulting company. His professional experience includes working as a regional development manager at Align Technology. Align, you know, is who owns Invisalign and iTero, as well as serving on its leadership council and serving as a specialty regional director for Pacific Dental Services. In addition, Michael has both pharmaceutical and medical device industry experience and has served on 2 national advisory panels. And the only way this show has been a huge smash success is because we're able to get guys like Michael to come on the show. Michael, thank you so much today for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
You first showed up on my radar. I posted it August of 17, which is almost 2 years ago. It said CDA subsidiary, the Dentist Services Company, purchased Arnold Dental Supply, which offers CDA members negotiated low pricing on 25,000 dental products as a CDA membership. That was 2 years ago. How did that acquisition turn out?
It's turned out great, and it really gave us a strong strategic advantage. Initially, when we formed this company to serve as a member benefit in California, we had to partner with 6 or 7 different supply companies in order to provide products through an e-commerce site. But with the acquisition of Arnold Dental Supply, now we own our own supply company, which gives us access to a lot of the top brands out there, which has been fantastic.
So this is Dentistry Uncensored, so let's just get right to the heavy punches. This is a very competitive space. I mean, it's nobody's secret that Amazon had a booth at the New York at the the New York meeting every year, the Greater New York meeting, which is held after Thanksgiving every year. Were you a little scared of going into the supply space when you saw big old Amazon.com having a booth at the Greater New York meeting 3 years in a row?
No, not at all. And if you think about the dental supply market, it really hasn't changed a lot. And if you look at dentistry, the landscape in dentistry has changed a ton, and that lack of competition hasn't been serving dentists very well at all. So I see the competition as a good thing. We want doctors out there to have options so that they can figure out what's best to run their own practice. So I think the more the merrier.
Well, I'm in Arizona, and I'm only 6 hours from El Paso, which is Texas. There was a lawsuit with some dental supply companies because I guess there was a guy selling dental supplies online, and basically the big guys, Patterson, Shine, Benco, said, hey, if you're going to have that guy have a booth, we're not going to have a booth. But anyway, long story short, it turned into a lawsuit. Were you aware of that lawsuit, and do you have any thoughts on that?
I'd heard about it. A lot of people ask if we were kind of formed in response to some of those activities, and the answer is no. I'm not exactly sure when that happened. I think it was quite a while ago. We were actually formed as a result of our members voting to form TDSC back in, I think, the end of 2014. So I'm aware of it. I know there's people looking into it, but right now I'm mostly focused on getting us up and running and what we can do well to serve member dentists out there.
There's a lot of people that I always ask, how do you save money on supply? Well, first of all, I would say with the geopoliticals first. Does being a nonprofit California Dental Association, does that upset some of the people that buy booths at CDA in Anaheim or CDA in New York, or Patterson and Shine, Burkhart, Benco? Are they not in love with you that you guys are starting a supply company, or are you, because you would have to be in direct competition with these vendors? Does that disrupt the supply chain channel?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and it's one we get a lot. We've been very transparent on what we're doing here in California with those companies because they are vendors and they are partners on a lot of fronts, not just coming to our annual show, but they help out with our Mission and Mercy clinics, and they're helping out at the component level. So they're definitely keeping an eye on us. I think there's plenty of room in the sandbox for all of us to play. Right now we're focused on disposables and small equipment. We're not in the large equipment business. We're not in the service business. We're not into IT and all these other things. And when you look at the larger supply companies, they really have a lot of adjunctive services that they provide to practices, which are critical. A lot of our members that use TDSC are also great customers for those companies as well.
The prices, the dentist trying to save money. I mean, there was a lawsuit. Shine Patterson Benko sued for price fixing. And then there was I believe somebody, let's see who on my notes here, court approved, this was January 10th of this year, 2019. This is only 2 months ago. Court approves $80 million settlement in class action lawsuit against dental product companies accused of violating antitrust laws by fixing prices on dental equipment and supplies. So do you, you don't write a check to somebody for $80 million if you didn't do anything wrong. So obviously somebody had to do something wrong to cut a check for $80 million.
Yeah, it certainly appears that way. And I think in my mind, it just further validates why, the members in California felt like the playing field wasn't level, and they really wanted to form this company to serve as a member benefit. And one of the things I was curious about, you talk about savings, and in our marketing materials, you'll see we advertise savings, but that's against MSRP. And people always ask, why do you advertise against MSRP? Nobody pays MSRP for dental supplies.
What is MSRP to my homies that don't know?
Yeah, it's the manufacturer suggested retail price. Exactly. And it's really the only bar that is out there that we can use to advertise against, because supplies vary once they're in the hands of the suppliers. And so I was curious to know how that really stacked up in California initially. And so I asked some of our members to send me invoices from their current supply companies to see what it looked like in real life. And I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of savings that we're able to provide. We're averaging 23% savings for members using the site, which would indicate
23% savings from the manufacturer suggested retail price?
Correct.
Okay.
But what we're seeing when we look at these invoices from supply companies is we're seeing a range. And, again, I think that just validated in my mind why the members were so frustrated, and the fact that we could be practicing next door to each other, buying the same thing, and maybe we're paying two different prices. And that's just not putting our private practice owners in a very good position.
Well, it's sad because a lot of it has to do with the American culture where they don't like to haggle. When I've lectured in dental conventions around the world, you go to some countries like where the dentist and the seller, they love to haggle. I mean, the first price you say, but when you're a dentist in America and your supply lady comes by and she fills your orders, it's just not a natural behavior in America to sit there and start haggling and arguing with the prices. So what they think is that, well, since this lady comes to my office every Monday at 10 o'clock for the last 10 years, and she loves my staff and she loves everybody, they're giving us the best price. And the truth of the matter is they're actually playing you for a sucker because they know you don't haggle, they know you don't argue, so you're paying the top price. But then the DSO across the street, and I want to remind people of the DSOs, whenever you say DSO, Dental Service Organization, people think of the big boys like Pacific or Heartland, but most DSOs only have about 5 to 10 offices, but they got a full-time haggling person, and they're arguing all the prices, and they're getting their dental supplies down to 4.5%, whereas the average dentist is probably paying closer to 6.5%, which is a 50% increase in cost. I mean, imagine what you collected last year for your dental office. Say the average dental office does $750. What is 2% of $750? I'm so old and senile, I'll have to get out my calculator. 750,000 times 0.02, that's $15,000 a year. I mean, that's the family vacation. So do you think DSOs, and you used to work with Pacific Dental Services, Steve Thorne, do you think your average DSO like Steve Thorne, Pacific Dental, is paying less for supplies than the average dental office?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you look at the way dentistry has changed and the landscape has changed, you've got DSOs, you've got group purchasing organizations, you even have managed care organizations like Kaiser crossing over from medicine into dentistry. And you're right, they have people on their team that are absolutely willing to go out and haggle the price on everything from paper clips to real estate and occupancy costs. And it makes good business sense. But when you think about dentists, and I'm going to speak very broadly here, this is people go into dentistry, and this is an industry that's built on trust and relationships, right? You want your patients to trust what you're saying so that they accept the treatment that you're recommending. And that really extends into business for a lot of dentists. They want to trust that the people that are there to provide them goods and services are doing the best they can for them. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And I've certainly run across members in California that told me, you know, Michael, go ahead, do a price comparison for me, but I've had my rep for 15 years. She's like a member of the family. In fact, I just went to her daughter's wedding last month, and, you know, we run the comparison and come back with a significant savings, and that kind of changes the way they feel a little bit. So I don't fault the companies. The companies they're out to run a successful business. I think we've just got to help our dentists do the same thing, because they didn't get business classes in dental school by and large.
Absolutely.
And they don't want their patients haggling with them over the price of a crown either. So yeah, it's just not in nature.
And that person you described is also the one embezzling from them. I mean, when dentists, when dental consultants go into dental offices, and we've podcasted all the major dental consultants there are, they all say about 50% of the time they see there's embezzling going on. And when the dentists talk to me about it and they cry real tears, it wasn't the amount of money that she embezzled. It was the fact that she was the godmother of their baby at the baptism. They were the family friend. And that's what people don't realize, that when people get really, really close to you, you're easier to play. And when someone's really far away from you. So how long have you had the Dentist Supply Company? How old is it from its inception?
Yeah, the inception, CDA started forming this company in 2015. And we went through a series of progressions where we, built the site. We worked with some beta groups within the organization and member dentists, and we became available to all of the members in CDA towards the end of 2017. So a little over a year and a half ago. And then last November, we actually rolled this benefit out to states outside of California. So we became available to 9 states in the Western U.S., essentially from Colorado west, with the exception of Alaska and Hawaii.
So you're in Arizona.
We are available to members of organized dentistry in Arizona.
Well, that would be me.
That's a key. You've got to be part of organized dentistry to have access to TDSC.
And that is the generally accepted reason why the American Medical Association fell apart and only has about 10% membership, unlike the ADA, which is like 65%, is because the AMA didn't insist on you had to be a tripartite member at your local, state, and federal level. And if you became a specialist in dentistry, you have to be a member. So that is why dentists are so organized well and efficiently and to play this game, where the physicians are not, because the physicians they lost their union. And so so the Dentist Supply Company is what did you say the date was? 2015 launch or 2017 launch?
We launched to all of our members at the end of 2017.
And now you're in how many states?
Now we're in 10 states, including California. And in the time that we've been available to all of our members and members in other states, we've just passed the $3.25 million in savings threshold. which was pretty significant for us.
And what is the actual website to buy the supplies? Is it tdsc.com?
That is correct.
And so can you tell us how many dentists are now members of this?
I don't have an exact number for you off the top of my head. I think one thing that we're honestly trying to figure out in terms of market penetration, when you look at organized dentistry, one thing that none of the associations keep track of is who's a practice owner and who's not. So even you could have 130,000 members of organized dentistry in the United States, but they're not all going to be practice owners. They're not all going to be making purchasing decisions. So that number is probably, somewhere in the 15 to 20% range of the overall number. And
what's
when
the
you look
15
at our
to 20%? The ones who actually own, or the employees that work there and don't own?
Probably the ones that own, and that's a pretty wild guess. Something that we're trying to zone in on, because essentially you can be available to all the members, but if you've got associates in a practice that aren't calling the shots on purchasing equipment and supplies, we may or may not be able to get them onto the site and get them shopping.
So do you, when they're shopping on your site, tdsc.com, do they have to fill out a profile so that this is Howard Farran in Phoenix, Arizona, as opposed to, you do have to do that? So
yes.
So then you're knowing then. So you're starting to build a database of who's organizing.
Correct. Yeah.
And is it, they always say the number one bias in statistics is all your own thoughts and feelings you project on the marketplace. I've had a dental office 31 years. I've never ordered anything for the hygienist because I think that's repulsive. I mean, you're the hygienist. You order the Profi cups and Profi paste. Because I don't want her sitting there all day long thinking, I can't believe I have to use this stupid paste that Howard buys and he doesn't even do the cleanings. Are you seeing a lot of hygienists ordering supplies for the hygiene department, or do you see mostly dentists buying for the whole office, or who's buying? Who typically orders the supplies?
Yeah, the accounts are set up under the doctor. So when somebody registers an account, just like you mentioned, they've got to fill out some information to build a profile, and one of those items is a license number. My experience, and even when we go to annual shows and we get a chance to see our customers in person and our members in person, most offices have somebody in the back office that might be in charge of keeping that inventory and kind of owns the ordering process. But right now, everything's ordered through the doctor's account.
And that would be Christina in our office. She's been doing it for 20 years. Love her to doing all that. So thank you, Christina. So when they order the supplies, or is TDSC just software and then you kick that out to other distributors, to manufacturers selling direct, or are you actually doing the Amazon.com thing where you got a warehouse and you're actually shipping supplies?
Yeah, good question. At first, we were a pure marketplace similar to an Amazon, where we leveraged the suppliers to provide those products and they shipped from their locations. Now that we own a supply company, we do have a warehouse. We're actually expanding that warehouse so that we can serve more members. And we have kept one strategic partner and another supply company, one, to give us access to more products so that we don't have to inventory everything. Two, it gives us an advantage from a logistics standpoint to have another place to ship products from for our members as well.
So was that the Arnold Dental Supply? Is that the one that you kept to do that, or was it another one?
No, it was Arnold Dental Supply up in Linwood, Seattle.
Oh, by gosh, that'd be a good one, because in Seattle, that's where Amazon and Microsoft are. I imagine it's a really easy place to hire employees that know how to code software for that type of logistics.
It is. It's a competitive market. Logistically, it is a little bit challenging once you start looking at serving members, outside of California. For our own selfish purposes, at first, it was just fine. So at some point, we'll need to kind of take a look at that as the opportunity grows and see what makes most sense to continue to support members as we become available.
So I'm going to share some historic dinners I've had in the last 30 years where you're sitting there at a dinner, and it'd be like maybe the CEO of Patterson, Pete Frechette, back in the day, and also the head of the dental for, say, like 3M or Dentsply back in the day. And it was a weird, you could tell it was a weird conversation, because like Dentsply, like they would have 1,000 reps, but they would not take orders and sell direct. They would sell through Patterson, who also had 1,000 reps. And it was like, when you ask them, well, why don't you just sell Dentsply direct, or you 3M direct? But it's this long dance they've had with Patterson and Shine, and it's like, so do you see any of the majors, 3M, SB, Dentsply, Sirona, do you see any of them loading up on and going direct, which would just be a tectonic earthquake in the dental industry that would show up on the Richter scale of at least 10? Do you see that earthquake happening?
I think anything's possible. I think that would probably be a good topic to have another one of those high-powered dinners that you're talking about with the leaders of those companies, because I know they're all looking at the landscape, and they're all trying to figure out how to evolve. It costs a lot of money to have all those feet on the street. And certainly when you think about how dental practices typically define service, it's that person coming right into your office. So it's something that's entrenched in the industry. And, we've got a lot of dentists that have just come out of dental school in the last 10 years, and those that are still in dental school that, quite honestly, might have a different idea of what service looks and feels like, especially when you look at the business models that are coming into play, where dentists have to see maybe more patients than they used to because reimbursement's so much lower. So they might not have the time to visit with that person when they come into the office. And that's a challenge that we're facing right now. And it's a good challenge. We've got this dichotomy of dentists, some that like that high touch experience, and then we've got some that are coming on board that prefer to do everything online. I don't know what the big companies are going to do, but I'd be surprised if they weren't considering doing something as the market evolves.
Well, I've seen this rodeo several times, being 56. I mean, I remember when they came out with the ATM machines, I was still in high school. And my dad and I couldn't figure out who in the world wouldn't want to go inside the bank and talk to Shirley and get a sucker and stand here and mess around with this machine that took forever. And now we have, I use Open Dental software where patients can schedule their own appointment online. And a lot of millennials prefer to do their banking online on their Chase app and make a dental appointment online through our Open Dental. And they don't think it's service having to talk to another human being, because I got to call you, you got to answer the phone, you got to put me on hold. So a lot of people, customer service is not having to deal with a human. And they're like, I'd rather go home and Thursday night after a glass of wine, just open up my laptop and order my supplies online than have to have Shirley come in the office tomorrow, who is going to walk in right in the middle of an emergency or a toothache or a hygiene exam. So when you're dealing with 211,000 licensed dentists, you're going to have a full distribution of what they think is customer service. So what if I start buying from you? I'm at TDSC, TDSC.com, which stands for The Dentist Supply Company, TDSC. And I look at dental supplies, and I see 3M, Colzer, Ivoclar, Dentsply, Septodont, Kerr. I see all the big boys, which I assume you're doing that to a dealer. But what if I like to buy some of my stuff from someone that only sells direct, like say Ultradent? Can I put in the order for Ultradent and you kick that to someone who sells direct, or is TDSC only selling people who only go through distributors?
Yeah, good question. Right now, it's only companies that sell through distributors. We're looking at ways to build relationships with those other companies out there. So if they ever decide to move onto an e-commerce platform, we would love to be able to support that for them. But right now, it would be limited to companies that deal with distribution companies like us. We have some items that we actually stock in our warehouses. We have other items that ship directly from the manufacturers. So they would be drop shipping. We would be taking the order and processing it, but they would physically be the ones shipping it.
Well, you're going to get a birthday present right now. The TDSC _ on Twitter, TDSC _ dentist. You got 100 followers. I'm going to retweet your last tweet to the 25,000 dentists who follow me at howardfarran.com on Twitter. Thank you so much for following me on Twitter. That is a tremendous honor. Your last tweet said, ever wonder if the products you're purchasing are from a trusted source? TDSC has a strong commitment to ensuring every product sold from our site is from an authorized supplier. Read more about how TDSC ensures trusted product and unparalleled swings, which brings up another great question. A lot of the younger dentists say, what does this talk about? Gray supplies or dark supplies, or what is the going term for that? Is it gray supplies?
Gray market goods. Correct.
Gray market good. Will you please educate my homies on why they should care about gray market goods? What does that even mean?
Yeah, gray market goods are products that might be being sold by companies that are not authorized distributors for a manufacturer. It could also be that products make their way onto a marketplace for uses for which they're not indicated for. And that was one of the things when the members at CDA formed this company. They gave us some pretty strict marching orders. One of them was to make sure we had no gray market goods on the site. And when we were partnering with several supply companies, it required us to audit them to make sure that they were in compliance with that. Now that we own our own supply company, we have much more control because we have the products coming in directly from the manufacturer. And then, as I mentioned, we still have one strategic partner who is another dental supply company, and they've been perfectly transparent. So I think, it's one thing to get a knockoff purse or a handbag or a sweatshirt or even a Rolex, and maybe you care it's gray market or fake or not. But when it comes to healthcare, and you are the healthcare provider, a lot of people want to make sure that they know exactly where the products come from.
Do you think it's a problem? I could see how that would be a huge problem. Like when you lecture in India or China or Brazil, people will tell you all the time that like pharmaceuticals, even at the pharmacy, you have no idea who made them, where they're from, the chance that they're fraudulently marketed. And if they get the packaging just right, well, you believe it's that drug. But are those types of companies, I could see them going after the big B2C drugs like, say, Viagra or Cialis, but are they really going after a bonding agent? I mean, do you see fraudulent manufacture of, like, say, 3M bonding agent?
They're definitely out there. And, I don't spend any time looking at the composition and the packing labels on products like that. I can tell you during my years at Pacific Dental Services, we had a doctor that was just getting started and was purchasing his supplies and instruments online. And the first time they went through the autoclave, they came out rusty. And the packaging looked perfect when the assistants helped unwrap them and built the cassettes and everything. And so they're out there. I think the key is do you want to think about it and be concerned about it, or do you want to be absolutely confident that what you're getting is exactly what you're paying for and you don't want to worry about it?
Some states, you're rolling this out. You started in California, you're in 9 states now, or did you say 10 states now? Or 9 states plus California equal 10. On your website, you said that you wanted to roll it out to all 50 by the end of the year. Do you think you're on target to hit all 50 states in 2019?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, I think we are. We're working at a very furious pace here to make sure that we are available to support member dentists in all 50 states by the end of this year. We've got a great team. We've got people focused on logistics. We've got people focused on software and integration, and we've got a great marketing team. And then my team has been helping dentists get on the site for the first time, and I've actually been giving states updates almost weekly on our progress so that they know when we'll be available to support members in their state. But things are looking very good.
Now, is it all going to be virtual? Like when I deal with Amazon.com, I've never met a human. Do you plan on rolling out eventually boots in the field, or are you going to try to keep this virtual?
Yeah, I think we're trying to figure out the best of both worlds right now. Dentistry, again, is a relationship industry, and we don't want to have boots on the ground. We try to run a model as lean as possible so we can pass on as much savings back to the dentist as possible. But we are creating some things to help offices, actually providing them a real person. So we've got real people on our customer service line. You're not going to go through an automated phone tree. We've got people in the office that are setting up virtual lunch and learns for practices so they can learn how to log in, learn how to navigate the site, learn how to save products on a list. And then every chance we get, whether it's at the component level or CDA Presents, we're hosting workshops and giving presentations to help people. So we're really, again, we're trying to do the best of both worlds, and I don't think that piece is going to change. I actually had something that was given to me for my birthday, in addition to your retweet, so thank you for that, through Amazon. And it was the wrong product, and I sent it back, and I've never seen that credit. I've never seen, the right item, and I can't find a phone number on that website to save my life. We definitely don't want to give that experience to our customers. So we intend to have real people here available for members. And that's the key too. We're an e-commerce site, but we're also a member benefit, and members have an expectation.
I just emailed you the link. You're talking about a lunch and learn, all that stuff. I just sent you a link to Tom Giacobbe's article this month, which talks about it. Dental Town magazine this month. He writes, in the final months of 2018, something very interesting happened in the world of dental supplies. Do you think it would be more Amazon.com news? Not at this time. This news originated just a bit to the south in California. The CDA has a subsidiary called the Dentist Supply Company, which purchased a supplier on the West Coast. This is huge because other dental associations typically just had business arrangements with discount suppliers to provide an additional benefit to their members. Imagine if the American Dental Association opened a dental supply company. It would work something like this. TDSC offers its discounts to members of organized dentistry. When this opportunity rolled out in California, some dentists were saving more than enough money to cover their membership dues. Do you think that the ADA is going to reverse engineer what you just did?
I'm not really sure. It's a good question, and I can't speak for them. I do know that one thing that we're hoping is that this will be an effective, maybe recruiting tool for some states to get more members to join organized dentistry, and in some states it might be a better retention tool. All of which would be benefits to the ADA and organized dentistry. So right now, the ADA doesn't endorse vendors in this space, and we're not looking for an endorsement from them. We're really here just to support on a larger level. And so, we're transparent with them, just like we're transparent with all the other states as to what we're doing and how we're trying to support.
Well, at a gut visceral level, do you feel the love from the ADA on this, or is it more a competition thing? Because the reason I asked, a lot of people ask me why I'm a member of the AGD, the ADA, all these things. Man, I want a bunch of people competitively fighting for me. I don't want one mothership. If you just have the ADA, I think when the ADA started allowing, you look at all the addresses for these associations, half of them have an address of 211 North Chicago Avenue. And so I want the AGD to fight for me, the ADA. I want the Arizona's Kevin Earl, the executive director of the Arizona State Dental Association. He's been on the show. I want everybody fighting for me. I mean, the competition is what makes you innovate. So I think if you innovate something where your tripartite dues are $1,000, what is the average price to be a member of the tripartite ADA, state and local a year? Is it about $1,000?
I think the tripartite nationwide average is about $1,500. I could be wrong on that.
Okay, well, $1,500. If you save me $1,500 on supplies, it's now free. And
Correct.
and if you bring down the average dentist is paying 6.5 and the average DSO is paying 4.5, that's 15 grand. That's 10 times my membership dues. I mean, I'd
Right.
pay you 1,500 any day of the week to save me 3,000, let alone 15,000. So I want to get back to that macro. Do you believe the macro boys, the big DSOs, are paying 4.5% and the average providing dentist is more closer to 6.5? Do you think those are good numbers?
I think that's accurate on the DSOs. My experience in working with dentists and actually seeing a lot of invoices is it's not uncommon to see private practice doctors spending about 9% of collections on instruments and supplies.
My poor
So
homies.
you're exactly right. And when you think about what an average practice collects in the U.S., and there's different numbers, but it's between 700,000 and 800,000 a year. If they're running a really tight ship at 6%, they're spending $42,000+ a year. They could stand to save $8,500 a year leveraging something like TDSC.com. That's more than they're due several times over. Who we are partnering with and really trying to empower on that competition front that you're talking about is we want to empower the states to go out and compete for the members directly. Because essentially that's where the membership happens. It happens when people join that state association. So a lot of times when you think about the benefits of organized dentistry, we're talking about advocacy, and that's not necessarily something that our practice owners or dentists in general feel on a daily basis. You don't feel advocacy in your practice, but you do feel when you save $1,000 a month. You do save $10,000 a year, and it's that to me is the empowering piece of it, because we're actually freeing up revenue that already exists in your practice so that you can reinvest it however you see fit. And if it's, retaining top staff, or it's technology, or it's paying down debt, or you mentioned going on a trip, that's the empowering piece. But we want the states getting excited about this and competing for those members right alongside of us.
That is amazing. And when you look, I want to ask you another macroeconomic thing about supplies. I don't know. I'm sure you've seen it, but I don't know if you thought about it. The Pattersons and the Shines of the world were always had a veterinary department. They never had a chiropractor department because only 5% of Americans go to the chiropractor. And when you go to the chiropractor, they don't use a lot of supplies and sundries. But when you go to a vets actually use more supplies than a dentist, but they're all getting out of that business. Why do you think dental supply companies are getting out of the veterinary supply business?
Yeah, that I have no idea about. I mean, I'm aware that they're doing it, but I haven't really looked into the reasons why. Profitability would be my first wild guess. I mean, if it's not profitable or you're not making a margin that's making your shareholders happy, then you've got to do something different. But I would be hypothesizing on all of that.
Well, but I want to go back to another way to save money. Like you're talking about saving money item by price. I mean, the only secret to lower price is lower cost. The only reason Southwest Airlines is cheaper than American Airlines is because of the hub and spoke system. They don't have meals. I mean, if American Airlines just started matching Southwest Airlines fees, they would go bankrupt. So you can't lower your price unless you lower your cost. And a lot of these dentists don't realize that a lot of their supply costs is because some of their insane bad habits, like the dentist and 2 hygienists, and they all use 3 different brands of gloves. The dentist and the associate use different bonding agents. I mean, I want you to go over some of the things you've learned about how you save supplies, not from your end, by disintermediating the middleman and trying to sell more direct, faster, easier, higher quality, lower fee. But what can the dentist do on their end to actually reduce their supplies from the ordering side?
Yeah, that's a great question. If offices took sort of a bottom-up approach to running their business, and we can use dental supplies as an example within the business, they would stand to shave off 1 or 2 percentage points of overhead. And really, having a goal in mind is the first key. So a lot of practices don't take the time to look back and reflect on what they spent the previous year, so they don't understand how much they're spending on any given item. And then setting a budget. And then if you look at the system you have in place, the process you have to run that system, and the people that are accountable for running it, and you tend to look at things through systems, processes, and people, you have the idea or the ability to figure out what's working well and what you should continue to do, what you should stop doing because it's not working, and what you might want to start doing to help you get to that end game or your goal. A lot of offices don't have a process or a system when it comes to ordering supplies. It's kind of, they go in the cabinet, somebody takes a quick inventory, they place an order. That's why a lot of people need to get something back in the office within 24 hours because they forgot something. There's a lot of spending going on there that doesn't need to happen. Like you said, 3 different brands of gloves, or they go to a trade show and they see this great deal on PVS impression material, so they buy a couple cases of it, but there's no way they're going to use it all. And so not having systems, processes, and people clearly identified within the business leads to all kinds of excess spending and poor purchasing habits.
One of the things that I'm very proud of we did with Dental Town is we started the 20 years ago the Townie Choice Awards, where we go to every category and we have the dentist vote. And what's really neat about that is dentists are extremely brand loyal. The person who took Dentsply public back in the day was John Miles. He had the biggest boat in Chesapeake Bay. If you're ever around Chesapeake Bay and you saw that huge monster boat with 3 different outboard engines, and that was John's boat. And his wife was from a Dominican Republic, and he could actually go visit his mother-in-law directly on that boat without getting on an airplane. I mean, he could ride it to the Dominican Republic. And just an amazing man. He used to always tell me that what he loved the most about dental supplies was that how brand loyal the dentists were. I mean, you think a consumer might be loyal to Pepsi versus Coke or McDonald's versus Arby's. He said dentists were just off the charts brand loyal. So then you start seeing this rise of associate dentists for the same reason the physicians did. As you came out with the MRIs and CAT scans, the physician had to go to group practice. You can't buy a $3 million MRI machine for one doctor. So as dentists started buying CAD cams and CBCTs, group practice became, it puts forces to share the overhead with these machines. And then you get 2 dentists who are both brand loyal to 2 different bonding agents, and they're stuck, and you're out there telling them you guys got to agree on one. And that's been the Townie Choice Awards, where every year several thousand dentists vote on each one of the categories. So it's not like my ego versus Michael's ego. It's like, wow, several thousand dentists voted on a bonding agent, and this is what won first place. And we always show the math, because sometimes the second place, first place might have like 40% of the vote, and second place had 39% of the vote, and even Gordon Christian loves the Townie Choice Award deals, because every time it comes out, he's like, damn, it's amazing how when everybody voting is a doctor, I mean, the winners are really just the winners. So I think if you're in group practice, and I'm telling you, you guys need to narrow the distribution of goods. Go to the Townie Choice of just agree with your associate. Look, okay, if we disagree on gloves, bonding agent, all this stuff, we're just going to have the tiebreaker be the Townie Choice Award. Because, I mean, when several thousand dentists say this is the best product for this indication, they're damn near always right. I mean, they're very right. So when you go back, so this dentist listening to you, when he gets to work, or she gets to work, and she's going to tell her assistant, Mike Christina, what should she tell her the goal should be for dental supplies? What's doable? What's that's too hard of a goal, and what's, come on, we can do this. What percent would you tell her of collections?
Yeah, I'm always a little hesitant to set certain goals with the team, but I think you've got to employ some open book management with some folks because they need certain information to do their job well. So if you've got somebody in charge of supplies, I think letting them know how much you spent the last year is a safe thing to do, and then come up with a goal for this year, and start with 1%, but have quarterly check-ins to see how you're progressing towards that. If you blow through it and you're at 1% or greater after Q1, maybe you up it a little bit, or maybe you're good with that and you just keep the systems, processes, and people in place to maintain that. It's different by each practice. And the other thing too to be careful with when setting goals is, I use those percentages as a percentage of collections, but if an office is doing a terrible job at collecting, well, you're going to see a higher supply cost. Supply costs might not be an issue in that office. They're doing a lot of dentistry. They're just not collecting. So I think you got to look at the health of collections if you're going to give somebody a percentage, but you could certainly maybe give them a dollar amount and spend. And for some practices, that might be keeping it flat year over year and not increasing it, even though you're planning on increasing production. So it's kind of tricky. I think it's case by case.
Well, I think another thing I want to warn the young dentists coming out of dental kindergarten school is that you'll go to a study club and you'll start hearing these old guys talk about their overhead, and I can assure you, I can positively prove you, they have no idea what they're talking about. Like, some old man might say, well, yeah, my overhead's only 50%. Yeah, well, he bought his land and building and he paid it off 10 years ago. And he doesn't, in accounting, there should be a cost of capital. You should own that land and building as a real estate property, and you should lease it, rent it to the dental office. There's no such thing as a free dental office. When dentists say, oh, my labor is 20%, well, are you following it up? Does labor include FICA matching? Does that include health insurance, 401k, uniforms? So when a dentist tells you the numbers, remember, it's a dentist. It's not an accountant. With supplies, I see this all the time. Like, people will start using Cad Cam. And I think they've sold about 10,000 Cad Cam systems in the United States. Well, those blocks are pricey. So if I'm buying those blocks and they're in supplies, then I don't realize that that's one of the reasons my supplies is so high. But if you didn't have a Cad Cam, that bill would be under your Crown and Bridge lab deals. So your lab costs might have gone down, but your supplies go up. So what I wish you would do, and I would love you for this, and the industry needs to do it, but we still don't have a chart of accounts in dentistry where everybody's comparing the same math. I have asked the National Association of Dental CPAs, the American Association of Dental CPAs, let's just get one chart of accounts so that everybody is looking at the same math, and we don't even have that for supply. So my first question to you, top dog at this TDSC, do Cad Cam blocks go under supplies, or do they go under laboratory?
Yeah, good question. I would put them under supply, but I've seen a lot of different things. I'm laughing because I think to the funniest thing I've ever seen on an office P&L, and that was alimony under a business expense. So when you say having standard list of accounts, even if we did that, we'd see some creativity on how they were used. But for our purposes, I would shift that under supplies, but I would also expect to see lab go down as a result of that.
Well, what I tell dentists who are always posting on Dental Town these cockamania IRS tax savings plans, I tell them everything is tax deductible until you're audited. And then when you're audited, you will go in front of an IRS judge, and there is no jury. It's funny how the juries are only for our domestic problems and murder and all these things like that. When you go to the IRS court, there's no jury. It's you, the IRS judge, and you're going to lose. So when somebody's telling you your alimony is a business expense, you want to believe it, so you believe it, and you do that, and it works just fine until you're audited. But what I'm seeing the trend doing is that as the DSOs get bigger and bigger, they're starting to add the supplies and laboratories together. So now, again, when you look at the only publicly traded companies, 1-300 dentists in Australia, Pacific, Q&M out of Singapore, they don't even break out. It's just lab and supplies. So what do you think lab should be? What do you think supplies should be? And what do you think lab and supplies should be? What do you think the average lab? And it's hard to give a number, because if you're a prosthodontist and you do 100 units of Crown and Bridge a month, your lab bill is a hell of a lot bigger than if you're a meat and potatoes dentist and you do 5 a month. So I know it's
Right.
too general, but do you have a number for lab, a number for supplies, and then a combined number for lab and supplies?
Yeah, assuming collections are healthy and a non-factor, lab and supply anywhere from 13 to 17%. And just like you said, depends on specialty. It depends on how the practice is set up. Within those, I would look for supplies to be somewhere in that 5 to 7, 6 to 8% range. Labs somewhere 7 to 9 or 8 to 10%. But proportionally, those could be skewed based on what you're putting in those buckets. So I think looking at the larger 13 to 17% for lab and supplies is a better way to go. And that's not to say that if you're outside of that, that's bad. It's only bad if you don't know why you're outside of that. It could be very intentional, but that's the key, is know why you're either way under or way over and not somewhere close to that range.
And I want to say another hidden lab cost is slow set materials. I mean, we know like dentists always argue that that they wish Delta gave them $1,000 for a crown instead of say $700. And I say, well, 1,000 to 700, that doesn't even mean anything to me. How long does it take you to do a crown? There's dentists that make perfect crowns in 30 minutes, some 45, some an hour, and you, doc, block off an hour and a half for every crown that comes in your room. And one of the reasons he is there an hour and a half is because he numbs and then the dentist leaves the room. Then he comes back, puts gloves and a mask on again. So he just doubled his supply cost of his mask and gloves and preps the tooth and then leaves to let the assistant pack cord. So now he's throwing off another pair of gloves and a mask. And then he comes back 15 minutes later when you could have stayed and packed the cord in 1 minute yourself. So, I mean, there's and then some of these materials like where it takes 2 minutes to set up. Well, hell, if there's a material that sets up in 1 minute, it costs half as much as the material that's set up in 2 minutes. I mean, when you're sitting there waiting for 2 minutes, I mean, that sounds like you're waiting. I mean, it's forever and a day. So with supplies, I would say the first thing is, when you sit down and numb up that patient, why do you have to leave the room? And I mean, just sit down and just do it. Just knock it out. And, I will sit down and numb the patient for a crown on a 6-year molar. And then I'll use Septicane, I'll set a timer for 4 minutes. While that's setting in 4 minutes, I'll take a shade. I'll fill out the lab tip. When it goes ding, I put in the isolite because my assistant can be doing a ton of other things. Instead of just standing there suctioning, have her spend that time putting in the isolite so that while you're doing the prep, you got all that light, all that suction, and Christina can be filling out the chart, cleaning the supply, getting it all set up. But when you're using those supplies, I mean, why use something that takes 33 minutes to set when there's something that takes 1 minute to set? So when I'm buying a supplies, the set time would be very important for me to see on the website.
Yeah, and I think a lot of doctors don't ask why they do things a certain way. It's just how they were trained, and they're not putting that business mind on or even maybe thinking about the patient experience. And so, you mentioned earlier, dentists are extremely brand loyal. And, if they get comfortable with something and it becomes predictable in their hands and they feel confident in the outcomes they can produce, they're not going to change unless there's a real reason to change. And so I think we just kind of get into this habit, or a lot of practices get into habits and say, well, this is the way we've always done it, so we continue to do things the same way. And it's not always in the best interest of the practice or maybe even the patient's time. But again, we're just kind of in the cycle.
So here's my overhead. Here's what I think you can do. I'm a dentist with an MBA. I think you can have 64% overhead. That's 8% is the hygienist, 6% is the assistant, 6% is the business admin, for total staff salary of 20%. Lab supplies 5%, supplies 4%. Dentist paid 25% of collections, which is impossible to do with the software. So what we do is we pay our dentist 25% of productions, but our collections equals our collection. So we do not have a collection problem, because if you go to McDonald's and order a hamburger, they ask you for the $2. If you say, I don't have the $2, can you just bill me? They say no. We take MasterCard, Visa, American Express. So, you need a crown. It's $1,000. You're on Delta, so now it's down to $700. Your portion of that is $350. You want to pay for that on credit card? They say, no, I don't get paid till Friday. Great. Well, let's go up front and make you an appointment to come in after you get paid on Friday. They say, no, I want to do it right now. Of course you do. That's why you have a credit card. There's $1.5 trillion on credit cards right now in America. So obviously you have a credit card. They'll pay that $350, and when their portion's paid, then we go, and then we're responsible for the insurance. If I told you that Delta is going to pay the other half and Delta doesn't, that's my problem. Because if I say, well, if they don't pay, you have to pay. Now they want to do some insurance predetermination, and that slows the flow. And again, when the reason we can do this is because we don't have staff turnover problems. My office manager Don's been there 20 years. My hygienist, my assistant, everybody's been there 10 to 15 to 20. So, when you don't have staff turnover, you don't have a lot of problems breaking down your systems. Michael, is there anything I wasn't smart enough to ask that you wished I would have asked and we covered that I didn't?
No, I think we've covered a lot of great ground today. I appreciate the opportunity to jump on with you, and looking forward to supporting as many member dentists as we possibly can in 2019 and beyond with TDSC.com. So thank you again.
Well, you know what I would do if I was you? You're not asking me for advice. I'm from Little Dental Town, and you're from the almighty CD, the California dental side. It is. I mean, hell, you realize when I was a dentist, who had the tallest building in Sacramento? Do you know who it was?
Yeah, it's we've been eclipsed since then. So.
I know, but when I started out and you went to Sacramento, it was pretty damn cool that the California Dental Association had the tallest building in Sacramento. I mean, how damn cool was that? Do you remember those days, or are you too young for that?
No, I remember those days,
yeah.
and I can appreciate it because I've had the chance to see other buildings in other states, and there's a wide variety.
Well, I'm not gonna give advice to someone who once had the tallest building in Sacramento when I actually live in a van down by the river. But what I would do, I would make an online CE course of not just how to use your TDSC, but just how to set up a supply system in general. Dental Town, we have 400 online CE courses. They've been viewed almost 1 million times. They're all ADA approved, FAGD approved, and they're all about an hour, and people really only want an hour course, but they don't even, someone should set up a online CE course of the dental supplies. How you would set up the ordering, how would you set up the systems, all the little nuances. Like, what if I want to buy something direct from Ultradent, but I want to buy something indirect from 3M, which has to go through dessert. But just an all-encompassing course so that this dentist has to wear all these hats. I mean, not only do you have to do root canals, fillings, and crowns, but I got to learn payroll and accounting and marketing and website and social media. They got too many hats. And the reason I can do what I got to do is because Christina's been ordering my supplies since my kids were born. And some young dentist setting up needs to have an hour-long online course where she's wearing too many hats. She can sit down with her new assistant and say, okay, you're going to be in charge of supplies. We're going to watch this online course together that's going to talk about supplies in general. And we're going to try to get a system. And I think that would be really good. But Michael Wilgus, Director of Strategic Relations, the Dentist Supply Company, TDSC.com, subsidiary of the California Dental Association. Michael, it was just an honor for you to come on the show today. Thank you for coming on and talking to my homies.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.